Tonight, will she stay or will she go? The chiefs in Assembly decide the fate of their national chief less than a year into her first term.
I don't think there was a village there for us.
It takes a village to raise a child, but one Connor Group home resident says he was neglected.
There's no question that that it is so important for First Nations kids to see themselves reflected and see their culture reflected in what they're learning in school.
And Indigenous youth in British Columbia can now get high school credits for drumming, singing, their art, and on-the-land learning. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The greatest crisis the Assembly of First Nations has faced could be unfolding at its annual General Assembly in Vancouver. On the agenda today, the very public airing of dirty laundry, where its suspended leaders suggested maybe it's time to dissolve the organization and start over. Rob Smith explains.
At one point, rumors abound that National Chief Roseanne Archibald would be barred from entering these doors. But that didn't happen. Flanked by supporters, suspended or not, she walked into the AFN General Assembly and dropped this.
The reason we're here today and the reason I'm giving this speech is because I refused to give $1 million plus to staff in a staff payout. I refused. I knew it was wrong.
The AFN executive stuck to its story that workplace complaints about Archibald's behavior and the investigation into those complaints are at the root of this conflict. Executive members made the case in front of the chiefs.
There are a number of stories, a number of narratives that surround this investigation and suspension. And there is a truth to be had through the findings of the investigation. That will take time.
It all began with 4 workplace complaints made on May 17th and 18th. The complaints were about the National Chief's conduct in the workplace.
The National Chief was suspended June 17th after she went public with her concerns. Supporters are not impressed.
What she's going through with the suspension and trying to be thrown out is really disgraceful. The Assembly First Nations should stand for upholding our matriarchs, and instead they're providing a lot of wishy-washy allegations that frankly aren't even the worst things that regional chiefs and AFN affiliates have done in the past. So all of this is really shady to me.
Outside the Assembly, the National Chief says she has proof of corruption contained in an email. An email APTN has not yet attained.
The whole system at AFN has a financial corruption that needs to be fixed. That's it. And this $1 million ask and my rejection of it is one example. There are many examples of staff payouts that we have to investigate under a forensic audit.
It's all laid out for the delegates now. They must decide the future of the National Chief. Rob Smith, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Delegates at the AGA are currently discussing the suspension of the National Chief. We will bring you any updates as we get them. We also want to hear what you think about what's been happening at the AFN. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. While some consider their teenage years among the best in their life, for Liam Smith, they were the darkest. At 15, he was placed into Ontario's child welfare system. An experience so traumatizing, he attempted suicide. For much of that time, he lived at a group home operated by Connor Homes, a private for-profit company that Global News, in partnership with APTN, has been investigating for months. Like many child welfare companies in Ontario, Connor Homes makes money off kids in care. How those kids are treated and what it's like inside the homes is often shrouded in secrecy. But tonight we hear Liam's story firsthand. Global's Caroline Jarvis reports in part 2 of our series.
Liam Smith was only 13 when his mum died in a car accident. Smiles faded from photos, and grief turned to agony when he says his family turned on him.
The two different family members I was with didn't want to take care of me.
And so he eventually arrived on the doorstep of a group home run by Connor Homes, a place his life would unravel even further.
Everything was like scored out of 1. Did you make your bed? Did you shower? Like when I'm depressed, I'm not showering. And when you're sick from school and you don't want to get up to eat, there goes half your points.
When kids didn't score high enough, freedoms were clawed back, and a rare chance for Liam to see his half-brother was taken away.
We were going to go to the Peterborough Zoo, got cancelled for having a bad mental health week.
For Liam, finding a sense of family inside those walls was nearly impossible, especially when, he says, the workers who were supposed to care for him would quit in a matter of days or weeks.
We would bet like snacks and stuff over how long people would last.
Because they left that frequently?
Yeah, like every 3 months there would be almost like a whole new team.
According to former workers, many staff were untrained to help kids with complex needs, which meant when Liam had a tough day, some didn't have the skills to help him. And too frequently, he says, he'd end up being physically restrained.
They would like hold your wrists like this, like you were on the ground, and then somebody would hold your legs.
Connor Homes, which declined an on-camera interview, said group home staff receive regular training, and every child receives wraparound supports from a multidisciplinary team, including therapists. Still, for Liam, that wasn't enough.
While in Connor Homes, I tried to commit suicide 3 times.
His mental health, which he says was fine before his mum passed, began to plummet.
It felt like you weren't worth anything. There was just nothing ever to do. You're so bored. It's like, I don't even want to wait these 3 years till I'm out of care. Like, I'd rather just go now.
After nearly 2 years at Connor Homes, Liam moved to a group home run by a different company, where he stayed until he was 18. Today, he is a success story. He lives independently and has a job. But that success was built mostly alone, and in the memory of what love once felt like.
It takes a village to raise a child, but I don't think there was a village there for us.
Caroline Jarvis for APTN National News.
And we will continue our investigation into Connor Homes tomorrow night with the whistleblowers who worked there, who say they were creating monsters out of kids. An update now on that hit and run during a march for residential schools in Mission, British Columbia that happened on June 4th. The RCMP and Mission BC say they expect to have an evidence package ready to forward to the BC Prosecution Service within the next few weeks. The hit and run made national headlines after the RCMP put out a release saying the 77-year-old male driver was, quote, impatient. However, witnesses say the man was swearing at them and threatening to run them over. The driver's vehicle was impounded, but he has faced no charges. The RCMP says the Serious Crimes Unit continues to investigate. They say after all of the media coverage, many additional witnesses came forward, which has extended the timeline of the investigation. 4 people were injured in the incident. Highways in the Yukon are melting, and the extreme heat is leading to closures. That is threatening supplies for Whitehorse and residential travel. And smoke from wildfires is making the road problems worse. Intense smoke from wildfires has led to a shutdown of the Klondike Highway from Pelly Crossing to Stewart Crossing, a traditional territory of the Selkirk First Nation, northern Shoshone. Meanwhile, on July 1st, the Alaskan Highway, the main artery into the territory, closed between Yukon and British Columbia due to a washout 125 kilometers north of Liard Hot Springs. Liard First Nation says they have a contracting crew working to open up the old Alaskan Highway to single-lane traffic early this week.
Our Div Corp in Lower Parse is called Iron Kachika. So they were the first responders and are still out there continue working on the washout, which makes us, of course, very proud because it's our very own people and our very own Div Corp working in our territory. So they are currently working on the Old Alaska Highway, which will hopefully open up maybe today.
Tiny Dene community in northwestern Saskatchewan is reeling after 3 people died late on the night of July 1st. Dillon RCMP on the Buffalo River First Nation were called to the scene of a fiery collision involving 2 ATVs around 11:15. The crash happened on a highway just outside of the band's main community, home to about 800 people. When RCMP located the ATVs, they were on fire. Nurses from the Buffalo River Health Center and the fire department attended to the victims. A 44-year-old woman and 2 men aged 21 and 24 were declared dead at the scene. A woman is also in hospital in Île-Croix for what are believed to be non-life-threatening injuries. Buffalo Narrows Staff Sergeant Sean Carter said in a statement, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends and those impacted. This is a tragic event for our community." Time for a quick break. Still to come, a lengthy territorial battle in Quebec heats up. Welcome back. A territorial conflict has languished for years between the Innu community of Mashtoyats and the Huron-Wendat community of Wendake. It recently escalated after the planned site of an Innu cottage was allegedly destroyed by Wendake members who feel they have claim to the land. Here's the story from Nouvelle Nationale, reporters Shushan Bacon and Amelia Fournier, voiced by Lindsay Richardson.
C'est quelque chose. C'est quelque chose d'avoir fait ça.
Claude Zipal, a Mashtoyats Innu, can barely recognize the view here. What was supposed to be her sanctuary is now devastated.
C'était plat, là. On voit qu'il y a d'autres trous là-bas.
This lot was earmarked for construction of her chalet back when the snow began to melt. On June 4th, a warning from the Council of the Huron-Wendat Nation was posted here, stating, "You are not authorized to set up on our territory, the Nyoensio."
Fait que mon fils était défait, là. Parce que mon fils a beaucoup travaillé sur le terrain. Il est opérateur de pelle, fait que là, c'est ça. Il m'a envoyé des photos, puis j'ai dit c'est inacceptable. Je pouvais pas rester silencieuse à ça.
In reaction to the controversy, the Huron-Wendat Nation called a public meeting in Wendake, just outside Quebec City.
J'en ai convenu avec le chef Dominique de ne pas créer de tension sur le territoire. Je pense que c'est extrêmement important à ce moment-ci. Puis laisser aller la discussion. Puis il faut que les gens demeurent diplomates dans tout ça. On a chacun des interprétations. Puis il y a un choc. Hein? Puis je suis convaincu qu'on est capable de régler cette situation-là.
The Huron-Wendat Nation is preoccupied by a previous agreement in principle, a promised treaty between the federal and provincial governments, and initially 4 Innu communities in Quebec. Seen here, the Nitassinan of Mashtoyats is in green, and in blue, the southwestern portion mentioned in the agreement in principle, which, according to Wendake's map, is Innu territory.
Il y a eu quelques réunions, même pas une par année, qui a été tenue par le fédéral avec notre Première Nation. Donc, on dénote là de la mauvaise volonté. C'est clair, là.
But one attendee at the public meeting had this to say.
Comme grand chef Vincent disait, peut pas juste être t'es chez nous, je suis chez vous, je suis chez nous, t'es chez vous. Faut être capable de s'asseoir 2 minutes, de dire bon, on arrête-tu de léguer des terrains pendant un certain temps, autant de votre côté de notre côté, puis on s'assoit, puis on discute. Si c'est ça, tant mieux. Si ça fonctionne, tant mieux.
Toutes ces roches-là, c'était pas là. Puis il y en a même, je sais même pas, ils viennent d'où. Parce qu'ils n'étaient pas sur mon terrain.
For Claude Zipal, it's important to take an interest in territorial negotiations. In fact, she says it's the population's responsibility and that she wants to be part of the negotiations.
Les gouvernements, il ne faut pas attendre après le gouvernement du Québec pour protéger nos droits. Il ne faut pas attendre après le fédéral, encore bien moins. Fait que je pense qu'il faut se parler, il faut s'entendre, puis après ça, on s'assit à ces tables-là avec un discours franc et commun. Moi, je pense que c'est vers ça qu'il faut aller, parce que le gouvernement n'a aucun intérêt à ce que Le gouvernement doit être content là, de ce qui se passe présentement.
Mark Miller, Canada's Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations, recognizes the impact of colonialism and says the history and reality of this issue isn't limited to these two communities.
Donc, quand on questionne, puis on se pose la question, c'est quoi le rôle du fédéral ou bien du gouvernement du Québec, on est là pour, comme tout le monde, d'essayer de promouvoir le vivre ensemble. Évidemment, la destruction de biens, c'est quelque chose de très préoccupant.
Gilbert Dominec, chief of the Pequagam-Yunuts, doesn't believe the territories overlap. He says in the past, families occupied the territory as if it were a shared space.
J'ai partagé au grand chef hier que, mais avant de faire ce pont-là, ce que nous souhaitons, là, c'est que la nation Wendat répare les dommages qu'ils ont causés là, à nos deux membres de notre Première Nation. Ils n'avaient pas à subir ces actes de vandalisme. Donc, on a dit, on est prêt éventuellement à se parler, mais pour le moment, là, notre priorité, c'est de régler ça. On a émis des conditions là, dans une mise en demeure. On va attendre là, vos réponses. Après ça, on pourra se parler.
Tu sais, gars, il y a un autre tranché ici, là.
Paul hopes the same. As a mother and a grandmother, she also hopes discussions will bring about solutions so the situation on the land will not continue to degrade.
On va de l'avant, puis mais c'est sûr que moi, c'est chez nous. Je veux dire, il n'est pas dans l'état souhaité, mais ça demeure pas moins que j'ai travaillé, puis c'est mon terrain.
A report from Shushan Bacon and Amelia Fournier. APTN National News on the Nyowencio or the Nistasinan.
It's out with the old and in with the new. A Mohawk community of 2,500 in Ontario now has a top-notch fire hall. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
The Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte has just upped its fire services game with a shiny new building. It's been a long time coming.
When I started 40 years ago, they were in repurposed buildings then, and we're talking about a new building at that time. So 40 years later, here we are, and it's just awesome for the fire guys and girls, and something to really be proud of, and I'm glad it came to.
The new state-of-the-art facility has plenty of room to clean and store all the equipment. Fire Chief Scott Miracle says it's the result of a determined leadership.
First Nations communities are not funded adequately for fire protection. So there was no government money for this building. Our chief and council just decided they were going to build a building, went to the bank and took out a loan, and $4.5 million later, here we are.
Over $1 million was donated by community businesses as well. Keith Miracle owns Tyndonega Propane. He says it's important to support and partner with the fire department.
It's a win-win for us all, so anything that I can do to help support, as with other people in the community, it's great. We have a wonderful fire department. They don't only go to fires, they do lots of other things that people don't really know about, I don't think, or give them credit for doing. So it's always a pleasure to help them out.
John Lewis is one of 26 volunteer firefighters on the crew. He's been volunteering for the past 8 years. He says having the support from everyone means a lot.
I see this as a kind of a pillar for the community, and a place where people know that our emergency response team is well housed and in a good spot.
Now the crew members on this team have the space they need to continue their important work. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Tyndonega, Mohawk Territory.
Great news for the community. Time for another quick break. Coming up, recognizing the value of cultural teachings. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Mary Beth Dawn Robichaud shared this shot from the Fisherman's Powwow in Miramichi, New Brunswick. Tired from all the powwow excitement, 3-year-old B. Sanapas took a nap at the foot of a traditional dancer, using his moccasins as a pillow. Thanks for the great picture. If you want to be featured as our photo of the day, email your summertime shots to share@aptn.ca. along with a location and description. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 18 with showers for Charlottetown and Halifax. 13 with rain in Kuujjuaq, 15 in Nain. 23 with showers for Montreal, 20 in Val-d'Or. 25 in Sault Ste. Marie, rain, and 21 for North Bay. Cloudy and 19 in Thunder Bay, rain, and 20 for Sioux Lookout. 21 with showers in God's Lake, 16 and rain in Norway House. Rain, and 25 for Winnipeg, 24 with rain in Dauphin. Sunny in Regina with a high of 26, 24 with showers in Saskatoon. 24 in Uranium City, showers, and 21 in the Ronge. In northern Alberta, 24 for Fort Chip and Fort McMurray. 21 with showers in Edmonton, rain, and 23 for Lethbridge. 18 with rain in Victoria, 20 in Vancouver with showers. Rain, and 21 in Prince George, showers, and 20 in Smithers. Rain, and 25 in Old Crow, rain, and 26 in Whitehorse. Sunny, and 25 for Yellowknife, 31 under the sun in Norman Wells. 18 in Sax Harbor, 26 in Pawlatuck. 15 with showers for Chesterfield, 12 in Arviette. 10 in Resolute, 15 in Igloolik. In British Columbia, First Nations students can now use cultural learning towards high school graduation. The province of BC has expanded their external credit program to include the learning youth receive in their communities. The BC Ministry of Education partnered with the First Nations Education Steering Committee to recognize cultural learning as high school graduation credits earned. Drumming, singing, art, and on-the-land learning are a few examples of what can be considered. First Nation communities can work with the province of eligible cultural programs. The Minister of Education, Jennifer Whiteside, says it's important for First Nation students to see themselves reflected in their learning.
There's no question that that it is so important for First Nations kids to see themselves reflected and see their culture reflected in what they're learning in school. And so valuing and validating the cultural teachings, the knowledge systems and perspectives that are contained within each nation's worldview in this in this land that we call British Columbia.
Good stuff. Well, that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. I can tell you, though, that the debate on 3 emergency resolutions at the Assembly of First Nations annual general meeting is still underway in Vancouver. They're currently still debating suspending or whether to suspend the National Chief, Roseanne Archibald. You can head over to our social media pages to watch that unfold live right now, and we'll have all the latest here for you tomorrow. You could also stick around right here for an encore presentation of Face to Face. Our guest tonight is NDP Member of Parliament, Blake Desjardins. It was a good one. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.